Welcome to the 200th episode of the Frugalpreneur podcast. I thought I would take a quick moment to reflect on the past 4 years of this podcast. Some of you may not know that I actually started this podcast as simply an extra marketing lever for a book I was releasing at that time, back in 2019. My plan was for the podcast to be a mini series of around 10 episodes where I interviewed founders and CEOs of some of the free or affordable software tools I use in my business that I referenced in my book. Little did I know that it was going to be the podcast, not the book, that would take off. I really enjoyed the conversations I was having, the connections I was making, and the networking that was happening. Why am I saying this in past tense? All of these things are still true to this day. I have really immersed myself in the podcast industry, regularly attending podcasting events and forming deep friendships with those whom I call my podpals, my podpeeps, my podsquad. It was the podcast that allowed me the opportunity to interview some of the biggest names in the podcast and entrepreneurship space, such as Jordan Harbinger, Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Mike McAllowitz, and more. I've even gotten to meet some of these people in real life. And just recently, I was notified by another podcaster that I had cracked the top 200 charts in Apple Podcasts for entrepreneurship. But just a few moments ago, before recording this episode, I actually went back to check to see if I was still in the top 200. Y'all, I'm now in the top 100, number 94 to be exact. But enough about me and what the podcast has done for me. I love hearing from you, dear listener, about the ways the podcast has helped you launch, manage, grow, market, and monetize an online business or podcast. In fact, I would love to hear more from you. Please tell me what you don't like, what you've learned, what you are implementing, what you are struggling with, what questions you have, what wins you've had, or anything you'd like for me to cover in an upcoming episode. You can type or record a message at frugal.show/message. Also, I've been thinking about hosting a one-day event or meetup with fellow frugalpreneurs. If that interests you, please let me know what city you are located in. Until next time, keep running that business on a bootstrap budget.